Do you love him?" Naomi froze, the phone trembling in her hand. Marcus's voice crackled through the line, low, calm, but barely masking the pain. "Just be honest with me, Naomi, before I walk away. For good." The silence stretched between them like a live wire. Naomi opened her mouth to answer, but the call ended before she could speak. "Let me take you back to where it all began. Sweetwater, Georgia." The scent hit Naomi right the moment she stepped out of her rental car. Magnolia blossoms mixed with the unmistakable sweetness of Mrs. Patterson's peach cobbler cooling on a windowsill somewhere down the block. She hadn't smelled that particular combination in 5 years, not since she'd left Sweetwater, Georgia, for the glass towers and endless hustle of Atlanta. Well, look what the cat dragged in. Naomi turned to find Miss Claudette standing on her porch across the street, hands on her hips, a smile splitting her face wide open. The older woman hadn't changed a bit. Same colorful head wrap, same knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through to your soul. "Miss Claudette," Naomi called back, her professional polish melting away as she jogged across the street. "You're looking beautiful as ever. Child, flattery will get you everywhere." Miss Claudette pulled her into a hug that smelled like cocoa butter and peppermint. "Your mama's been cooking for 2 days straight. I hope you brought your appetite." Naomi laughed, feeling something tight in her chest loosen. "Is she making smothered chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, cornbread, and her famous banana pudding?" Miss Claudette ticked off each item on her fingers. "Plus your Aunt Joyce is bringing sweet potato pie, and you know she'll have something to say if you don't eat 2 slices. Some things never change. And some things do." Miss Claudette's expression turned shrewd. "Heard you made junior partner at that fancy law firm. Your mama's been bragging to everyone at church." A familiar knot formed in Naomi's stomach. Junior partner, the title she'd worked 80-hour weeks to earn. The achievement that should have felt like victory but somehow felt like she wasn't sure what. That's why she'd said yes when her mother called about her father's retirement party. That's why she'd taken 2 weeks off for the first time in 3 years. "It's a good firm," Naomi said carefully. Miss Claudette hummed, a sound that said she heard everything Naomi wasn't saying. "Well, go on now. Your mama's probably watching from the window, you know how she gets." As if on cue, the front door of the Wright family home burst open, and Naomi's mother appeared on the porch, arms spread wide. "My baby's home!" Diane Wright hadn't changed either. Same warm brown skin, same short natural hair now shot through with silver. Same ability to make Naomi feel like she was both 10 years old and completely loved. "Hi, Mama." Naomi found herself running up the walkway, her designer heels clicking against the concrete path her father had laid 30 years ago. She fell into her mother's embrace, breathing in the scent of Chanel No. 5 and the bergamot oil her mother had worn for as long as Naomi could remember. "Let me look at you." Her mother held her at arm's length, eyes scanning her face. "You're too thin. They're not feeding you up there in Atlanta?" "Mama, I eat plenty." We'll see about that. Come on inside, your daddy's in his workshop, but he'll be in soon. And your brother's bringing the kids by later." "Stephen is coming?" Naomi felt a genuine smile spread across her face. She hadn't seen her older brother or her niece and nephew in months. "Of course he's coming. It's not every day his baby sister comes home." Her mother ushered her inside, and Naomi was immediately enveloped by the warmth of the house, literally and figuratively. The heat from the kitchen wrapped around her like a blanket, and everywhere she looked were memories. The family photos marching up the stairway wall, her father's favorite armchair, worn smooth in all the right places, the piano in the corner where she'd practiced scales every day after school. "I put you in your old room," her mother was saying, leading her toward the stairs. "I hope that's all right. I know you're used to fancy hotels and—" "Mama." Naomi caught her mother's hand. My old room is perfect." Her mother's eyes went soft. "Good, because I might have kept it exactly the same, just in case." "Just in case you came home," Naomi heard. "Just in case you remembered where you came from." They climbed the stairs together, and Naomi felt the weight of the last 5 years pressing on her shoulders. The late nights, the missed calls, the holidays spent working while her family gathered without her. She'd told herself it was worth it. That success meant sacrifice, that she was making them proud. But standing in the doorway of her childhood bedroom, looking at the faded posters and the bookshelf full of worn paperbacks, she wondered if she'd sacrificed the wrong things. "You rest up," her mother said, squeezing her shoulder. "Dinner's at 6, and Naomi—" She paused in the doorway. "I'm real glad you're home, baby, real glad." After her mother left, Naomi sat on the edge of her old bed and looked out the window at the street she'd grown up on. The oak trees were bigger now, their branches reaching across the road to touch each other. Mr. Henderson was washing his car, just like he did every Saturday. And down at the corner, she could see the steeple of Sweetwater Community Church, where 3 generations of Wrights had been baptized, married, and mourned. Her phone buzzed, a text from her colleague Brad. "Client wants to move up the deposition. Can you hop on a call Monday?" Naomi stared at the message, then set her phone face down on the nightstand. For the next 2 weeks, she was home, and maybe, just maybe, she'd figure out what that really meant. The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of Naomi's childhood bedroom, painting golden patterns across the hardwood floor. She'd forgotten how quiet mornings could be without the constant hum of Atlanta traffic. The only sounds were birdsong and the distant clatter of her mother already busy in the kitchen. After pulling on jeans and a soft yellow sweater, clothes that had been gathering dust in her old closet, Naomi headed downstairs. The smell of bacon and fresh biscuits made her stomach growl. "Morning, baby," her mother called from the stove. "I'm making your favorite." "Mama, you don't have to." "Hush now. When's the last time I got to cook breakfast for my daughter?" Diane Wright pointed a spatula toward the door. "Besides, you need to run to Miller's Hardware for me. Your daddy's already trying to fix the porch railing, and he needs wood screws. The Phillips head kind, size 8. Naomi smiled. Some things never changed. "I'll head over after breakfast." 20 minutes later, she was walking down Main Street, taking in the familiar storefronts. Turner's Pharmacy still had the same red awning. The Sweetwater Diner still advertised their famous peach cobbler in the window. But there were changes, too. A new coffee shop called The Daily Grind, a yoga studio, a bookstore that hadn't been there before Miller's Hardware sat on the corner where it had been for 50 years, its green paint freshly touched up. The bell above the door chimed as Naomi stepped inside. The store smelled like sawdust and motor oil, a scent that transported her instantly to Saturday mornings tagging along with her father. She was scanning the aisle signs when a deep voice called out from somewhere near the back. "Be right with you." Something about that voice tickled her memory, but she couldn't place it. Naomi wandered toward the screws and bolts section, studying the tiny drawers with their handwritten labels. "Phillips head, size 8, she muttered, running her finger along the labels. "Third drawer from the bottom, left side." Naomi turned, and her breath caught Marcus Miller stood there, wiping his hands on a work apron, a smile spreading across his face. He'd filled out since high school. Broader shoulders, a neatly trimmed beard, laugh lines around his eyes. But that smile was exactly the same one she remembered from sophomore year English class, when they'd been partners for every group project Mrs. Henderson assigned. "Marcus?" "Naomi Wright." He shook his head slowly, his smile growing wider. "I heard you were back in town. Heard you were some big-time lawyer now, too." I'm just visiting." She felt suddenly self-conscious in her casual clothes, no makeup, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. This wasn't how she'd imagined running into anyone from her past. "You're running the hardware store?" Bought it from my dad 3 years ago." He leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. He wanted to retire, and I wanted to come home. Seemed like the right fit. "You came back? I thought you were—" She trailed off, trying to remember. "Didn't you get into Georgia Tech? Engineering?" "I did, graduated. Worked in Atlanta for a few years, actually. Designed HVAC systems for commercial buildings." He pulled open the drawer he'd indicated and grabbed a small box of screws. "These what you need?" "Yes, thank you." She took the box, their fingers brushing briefly. "So you left engineering to run a hardware store?" There was a slight edge to her question she hadn't intended, and Marcus caught it. His eyebrow raised just a fraction. "I left a job that had me in a cubicle 60 hours a week to run a business that's been serving this community since 1972, he said, his tone still friendly but with a hint of challenge. "I teach woodworking classes to kids on Saturdays. I know my customers by name, and I actually get to use my hands to build things instead of just drawing them on a computer." Naomi felt her cheeks warm. "I didn't mean—" "It's okay." His expression softened. "I know how it sounds. My colleagues in Atlanta thought I was crazy, too." He rang up her purchase on an old-fashioned register. "But crazy is working yourself to death for a corner office you're never in because you're too busy working." The words hit closer to home than he could know. Naomi handed him a $20 bill, studying his face. There was a contentment there, a groundedness she hadn't seen in any of her colleagues back in Atlanta. "That's $4.75. He counted out her change, then paused. "Hey, you remember Mrs. Henderson's class, when we had to build that model of the Globe Theater?" Naomi laughed, the memory flooding back. "You did all the actual construction, and I painted every tiny detail. Best project in the class. She gave us a 98 because you insisted on historical accuracy for the flag colors." His eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. "You always were thorough." "Thorough is a nice word for obsessive." I was going to say passionate. He held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, and Naomi felt something flutter in her chest, something she hadn't felt in a very long time. The bell above the door chimed as another customer entered, breaking the moment. "I should let you get back to work," Naomi said, clutching the small bag of screws. "How long are you in town?" "Just through the weekend." "That's a shame." Marcus smiled again, and this time there was something different in it, something that made her pulse quicken. "Would have been nice to catch up properly, maybe over coffee at that new place down the street." Naomi hesitated. She had briefs to review, emails piling up, a conference call scheduled for Monday morning that she needed to prepare for. But standing here in the hardware store, looking at Marcus Miller with his work apron and genuine smile, those things felt very far away. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. "Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock? It's a date." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and she quickly added, "I mean, not a date, just coffee, as old friends." Marcus's grin turned slightly mischievous. "Right, old friends. I'll see you tomorrow, Naomi Wright." As she walked back out into the sunshine, Naomi couldn't help glancing back through the window. Marcus was helping the other customer, but he looked up at just that moment and caught her watching. He winked. Naomi turned away quickly, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This was just coffee with an old friend. Nothing more. So why did it feel like something had just shifted? The Sweetwater Bean was exactly the kind of place Naomi had forgotten existed, tucked between the barber shop and Miss Loretta's beauty salon, with mismatched chairs, local art on brick walls, and the rich aroma of fresh ground coffee that wrapped around you like a hug the moment you walked in. Marcus held the door open, and Naomi caught a hint of his cologne as she passed. Something warm and woodsy that made her stomach flutter in a way that had nothing to do with needing caffeine. Naomi Wright. The woman behind the counter, tall, dark-skinned, with silver locks piled in an elegant crown, broke into a wide smile. "Girl, I heard you were back in town. Your mama must be beside herself." Naomi laughed, warmth flooding her chest. "Hi, Mrs. Simone. She's definitely keeping me busy." "I bet she is." Mrs. Simone's knowing eyes slid to Marcus, her smile turning sly. "And I see Marcus is making sure you remember all the good things about Sweetwater." "Just showing her the best coffee in town," Marcus said easily, but Naomi noticed the tips of his ears darken. Mrs. Simone winked. "The usual for you, Marcus. And what can I get you, sweetheart?" After ordering a caramel latte for her, black coffee for him, and 2 of Mrs. Simone's famous peach hand pies, they settled into a corner table by the window. Afternoon sunlight streamed through, catching the gold undertones in Marcus's brown skin. Naomi wrapped her hands around her mug, suddenly nervous. "So, not a date? Marcus's laugh was low and genuine. "Right, definitely not." But the way he was looking at her, steady, interested, like she was the only person in the room, made her heart skip. "Tell me the real story," Naomi said, leaning forward. "Engineering degree from Georgia Tech, job at one of the best firms in Atlanta. Then you come back here to run a hardware store? That doesn't add up, Marcus Miller." He took a slow sip of coffee, and she watched something shift in his expression, the easy charm giving way to something deeper, more vulnerable. "My dad had a stroke," he said quietly. 3 years ago. He survived, thank God, but he couldn't run the store anymore. My mom was trying to do it all. Take care of him, manage the business, keep everything together." He traced the rim of his mug. "I came home for what I thought would be a few months, just to help out, get things stable. And you stayed." "I stayed." He met her eyes. "At first, I told myself it was temporary, that I'd go back to Atlanta once Dad was better. But then," he paused, seeming to search for the right words, "I started remembering why this place mattered. Mr. Johnson coming in every Saturday for supplies to fix up houses for families who can't afford repairs, the high school kids I could hire for summer jobs, being there when Mrs. Patterson needed someone to help install grab bars in her bathroom after her hip surgery." Naomi felt something tighten in her chest. "You found purpose." "Yeah." His voice was soft. "I was making good money in Atlanta, working on projects that looked impressive on paper, but I wasn't making a difference. Not the kind I could see anyway. Not the kind that looked me in the eye and said thank you." The vulnerability in his admission made Naomi's throat ache. She broke off a piece of her hand pie, not trusting herself to speak right away. "What about you?" Marcus asked. "Big-time attorney, partner track, the whole 9 yards. That's what your mom tells everyone." Naomi laughed, but it came out shaky. "My mom tells everyone a lot of things." "But?" She looked down at her latte, watching the foam swirl. When was the last time someone had asked her this? Really asked, and waited for a real answer? "But I'm not sure I recognize myself anymore," she admitted. "I work 80-hour weeks on cases I don't care about, for clients who see me as a billable hour. I live in a beautiful apartment I'm never in. I have a closet full of designer suits and no time to wear them anywhere except the office." She looked up, surprised by the sting of tears. "I'm successful. I should be happy. But mostly I'm just tired." Marcus reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The touch was gentle, grounding. "Success isn't supposed to make you tired, Naomi. It's supposed to make you come alive." Before she could respond, the door chimed and a group of teenagers tumbled in, one of them calling out, "Mr. Marcus, tell Dre you said I could have Saturdays off for basketball." Marcus squeezed her hand before letting go, turning with a grin. "I said you could have Saturdays off if you finished inventory on Fridays, Jamal. Did you finish inventory?" The good-natured argument that followed made Naomi smile. She watched Marcus joke with the kids, noticed how they respected him, how easily he moved between being their boss and their mentor. This was what he'd meant. This connection, this mattering. When he turned back to her, apologizing, she shook her head. Don't. I like seeing you in your element. My element is getting roasted by teenagers. Your element is being someone people count on. Something shifted in his expression, a softness, an intensity that made her breath catch. The cafe noise faded into background static. It was just them, this table, this moment suspended in afternoon light. I'm really glad you came home, Naomi, Marcus said quietly, even if it's just for a little while. Me too, she whispered, and meant it more than she'd meant anything in a long time. Outside the window, Sweetwater's main street bustled with familiar faces and slow-paced life, and for the first time in years, Naomi wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere else. The late afternoon sun filtered through the lace curtains of Naomi's childhood bedroom, casting delicate patterns across the hardwood floor. She sat at her old vanity, the same one where she'd practiced her closing arguments in the mirror during law school breaks, and watched her mother's skilled hands work through her hair. "Hold still, baby," Diane Wright murmured, her fingers separating another section with the precision of someone who'd been doing this for 35 years. The hot comb's familiar scent, blue magic hair grease warming against metal, filled the room with a smell that was pure nostalgia. "I can't believe Daddy's actually retiring," Naomi said, meeting her mother's eyes in the mirror. 30 years at the plant. 32, her mother corrected with a soft smile, and he's earned every bit of rest coming to him. She guided the hot comb through Naomi's hair in smooth, confident strokes. "Though between you and me, I think he's going to drive me crazy being home all day." The bedroom door swung open, and Naomi's younger sister, Simone, breezed in carrying 3 dresses on hangers. "Okay, I raided your closet and mine. We need to figure out what you're wearing because that boring navy suit you brought is not it." "It's professional," Naomi protested. "It's a funeral," Simone countered, draping the dresses across the bed. "This is a party, Nay. A celebration. You need to look like you're actually happy to be here." "I am happy to be here." "Then dress like it." Simone flopped onto the bed, her natural curls bouncing. At 28, she still had the energy of the high school track star she'd been. "The burgundy one. Definitely the burgundy." Diane paused her work, studying the dress. "That would look beautiful on you, Naomi. Brings out your skin tone, and it's got that elegant cut, sophisticated but not stuffy." Naomi looked at the burgundy wrap dress, its fabric catching the light. It was nothing like what she'd wear to a firm function. It was softer, warmer, more her, or at least more like the version of herself she'd been rediscovering this week. "When did you get so stylish?" Naomi teased her sister. "When you moved to Atlanta and forgot how to dress for anything that isn't a courtroom." Simone grinned, then tilted her head, studying Naomi with sudden interest. "Speaking of which, you seem different. Lighter somehow." "I'm just relaxed. It's nice being home." "Mm-hmm." Simone's grin widened. "And does this relaxation have anything to do with Marcus Miller?" Naomi's heart did a small flip at his name. "What?" "No, I mean, we just had coffee." "Just coffee," Simone repeated, laughing. "Girl, Keisha saw you two at the diner yesterday. Said you were looking at each other like—" "Simone," Diane warned, but there was amusement in her voice. She set down the hot comb and began parting Naomi's hair for pin curls. "Though I did run into Patricia Miller at the grocery store. She mentioned Marcus has been in an unusually good mood lately." Heat crept up Naomi's neck. "We're just reconnecting. As old friends." "Old friends who have chemistry you could light a candle with," Simone said. "I'm just saying, it's about time you've been married to that law firm for too long." The words hit closer than Simone probably intended. Naomi had been married to her career, to the prestige, the partnership track, the life she'd built that looked perfect from the outside. But sitting here, in her childhood room, with her mother's gentle hands in her hair and her sister's teasing filling the space, she felt something she hadn't felt in Atlanta in years. She felt like herself. "Marcus is a good man," Diane said quietly, securing a pin curl. "Came back when his family needed him. That says something about character." "He did," Naomi agreed, remembering their conversation at the diner, the way he'd talked about finding purpose here, about building something meaningful. "He seems content, really content." "And you're not," Diane said. It wasn't a question. Naomi met her mother's knowing eyes in the mirror. "I don't know what I am anymore, Mama." Diane's expression softened. She set down the last pin and rested her hands on Naomi's shoulders. "Then maybe it's time to figure that out. And maybe home is a good place to start." Simone sat up, her playful energy shifting to something more serious. "You know you don't have to go back, right? I mean, you do you, but we miss you, Nay. It's not the same without you here." The words settled around Naomi's heart, tender and aching. She'd spent so long building her life in Atlanta, proving herself, climbing higher. But what was she climbing toward? And what had she left behind in the climb? "Well," Diane said, breaking the moment with practiced maternal efficiency, "whatever you decide, you're going to look beautiful doing it. Now let's get you in that dress. Guests will be arriving in an hour." As Naomi stood, Simone's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and something flickered across her face. "What?" Naomi asked. "Nothing, probably, just—" Simone bit her lip. "Keisha said she saw a fancy car pull up to the inn, someone from out of town." Naomi's stomach tightened. "Okay?" "She said it looked like a lawyer car. You know, expensive. Atlanta plates." The warmth that had filled the room seemed to cool by a few degrees. Naomi had invited colleagues, of course. It would have been strange not to. But something about the way Simone said it made her uneasy. "I'm sure it's just someone from Daddy's work," Diane said. But her eyes held a question. Naomi forced a smile and reached for the burgundy dress. "I'm sure it's nothing." But as she slipped into the dress and her mother zipped her up, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that her two worlds, the one she'd built and the one she'd left behind, were about to collide, and she wasn't sure which one she wanted to win. The Sweetwater Community Center had been transformed into something magical. White lights twinkled from every corner, and the tables were draped in her father's favorite colors, navy and gold. The smell of Miss Loretta's famous peach cobbler mingled with barbecue and collard greens, and the sound of laughter filled every corner of the room. Naomi stood near the dessert table, watching her father hold court with his former colleagues from the fire department. Chief Raymond Brooks, strong, steady, beloved, was finally getting the celebration he deserved after 35 years of service. Her heart swelled with pride. "He looks happy," Marcus said, appearing at her elbow with 2 cups of punch. "He does." She accepted the cup, their fingers brushing. That now familiar electricity sparked between them. "Thank you for being here. Wouldn't miss it." Marcus's smile was warm, genuine. He looked devastatingly handsome in a charcoal suit that fit him perfectly. "Besides, I got to see you in that dress." Naomi felt heat rise to her cheeks. The emerald green dress her mother had insisted she wear suddenly felt like the best decision she'd made all week. "Marcus Miller, are you flirting with me at my father's retirement party?" "Absolutely." His eyes held hers. "Is it working?" Before she could answer, her father's voice boomed across the room. "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" The crowd quieted as Raymond stepped up to the microphone, his wife Diane beaming beside him. Naomi felt Marcus's hand find the small of her back, a gentle, protective gesture that made her lean into him slightly. I want to thank you all for coming tonight, her father began. 35 years ago, I walked into Station 12 as a rookie, scared out of my mind. Her mother sat back, something shifting in her expression. And what life is that? The big career, the penthouse, the right kind of boyfriend with the right kind of credentials. Naomi's laugh was bitter. I've been so busy climbing that I forgot to ask myself where I was actually trying to go. And Marcus? Her father asked quietly. Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. Marcus is real. What I feel with him is real. When I'm with him, I'm not performing or proving anything. I'm just me. The me I forgot I could be. Her mother stood, moving to sit beside Naomi on the sofa. She took her daughter's hand. Baby, I'm not disappointed that you made a mistake. I'm disappointed that you weren't honest with Devin, with Marcus, but most of all with yourself. You can't build anything real on a foundation of half-truths and hedged bets. I know. Naomi wiped her eyes. I know that now. So what are you going to do about it? Before Naomi could answer, the doorbell rang. Her father moved to answer it, and Naomi heard Devin's voice in the foyer, smooth and insistent. I just need to talk to Naomi for a minute. Clear some things up. Her mother squeezed her hand. Handle your business, baby. Honestly this time. Naomi stood, squaring her shoulders as Devin appeared in the doorway. He changed into a fresh shirt, his cologne announcing him before his words did. Naomi, we need to talk about what happened. I think there's been a misunderstanding. There hasn't been a misunderstanding, Devin. There's been a lack of communication, and that's on me. She gestured to the chair her mother had vacated. Sit down. He sat, confusion flickering across his handsome features. Look, I know meeting your family like this wasn't ideal, but now that it's out in the open, we can... Devin, we're done. We were never really together in the way you thought we were. His expression hardened. That's not fair. We've been seeing each other for 6 months. Exclusive for the last 3. Were we exclusive? Because I don't remember having that conversation. We didn't need to have it. It was implied. We were building something, Naomi. I introduced you to my partners. You were going to be my date to the firm's gala next month. He leaned forward, his voice taking on an edge. Do you know how good we look together? How perfect we are on paper? There it was, the truth beneath the surface. That's exactly the problem, Devin. We're perfect on paper. But that's all we are. Paper. No substance. No real connection. That's not true. We have everything in common. We have resumes in common. We have ambition in common. But Devin, when's the last time we talked about something that actually mattered? When's the last time you asked me how I was really feeling, not just how the Hartwell account was going? He stood, his jaw tight. So that guy, Marcus, he's what? More real because he works with his hands? Because he's small town? That's quite the downgrade, Naomi. Her father stepped forward from where he'd been standing in the doorway. I think it's time for you to leave, son. Devin's eyes flashed. You know what? Fine. But don't come crying back to Atlanta when you realize you've thrown away your career for some small-town fantasy. You're better than this place, Naomi. I thought you knew that. No, Naomi said quietly, her voice steady now. I'm better than who I was pretending to be. And I'm sorry I wasn't honest with you from the start. You deserve someone who's all in, but that person isn't me. Devin stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head. Your loss. He brushed past her father and out the door. The silence that followed felt different, cleaner somehow. I'm proud of you, her mother said softly. Don't be proud yet. I still have to fix things with Marcus. Naomi grabbed her phone, her hands shaking as she pulled up his number. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. He's not answering. Panic crept into her voice. Her father checked his watch. It's almost 11. He's probably at the garage. That's where he goes when he needs to think. Been that way since he was a boy working on cars with his grandfather. Naomi grabbed her purse. I have to go. I have to tell him. That you love him? Her mother asked, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Naomi stopped, the words hanging in the air. Did she love him? She thought of Marcus's laugh, the way he listened like her words actually mattered, the gentleness in his hands, the strength in his character. She thought of how she felt like herself, her best self, when she was with him. Yes, she whispered, I love him. Then go tell him that, her father said. And Naomi, don't lead with explanations, lead with truth. She kissed them both and ran for the door, her heels clicking against the hardwood. The night air was cool against her tear-stained face as she climbed into her car. The garage was only 10 minutes away, but it felt like miles. Please let him be there, she prayed. Please let me have the chance to make this right. The streets of Sweetwater were quiet, the party long over, the gossip just beginning. But Naomi didn't care about any of that anymore. She only cared about finding Marcus and telling him the truth, the whole truth, even if he couldn't forgive her. Even if she'd lost him for good, he deserved to know that what they had was real, that he was real, that for the first time in years she'd felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be, and that place was with him. The garage sat at the edge of town, a squat cinder-block building with bay doors rolled halfway up. Naomi's headlights swept across the gravel lot as she pulled in, catching the silhouette of Marcus's truck parked at an angle near the entrance. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The smell hit her first when she stepped out, motor oil, metal, and something sharp like welding torch residue. One overhead light buzzed inside, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. She could hear the rhythmic clank of a wrench against metal. Marcus? The clanking stopped. She stepped through the bay door. Marcus was bent over the open hood of an old Chevy, his white t-shirt already smudged with grease. He didn't look up. Garage is closed, he said flatly. I'm not here about a car. Then you're really in the wrong place. He returned to whatever he was doing under the hood, the wrench resuming its steady rhythm. Each strike felt deliberate, controlled, like he was working very hard to keep his hands busy. Naomi moved closer, her shoes scraping against the gritty floor. Marcus, please, I need to talk to you. Nothing to talk about. His voice was ice. You made yourself pretty clear at the party. That's not... I didn't mean what? He straightened then, finally looking at her. His jaw was tight, eyes hard, in a way she'd never seen. Didn't mean to let your ex-fiancé show up? Didn't mean to keep me a secret from him? Or didn't mean to make me feel like some dirty little small-town secret you were ashamed of? The words hit like physical blows. I wasn't ashamed. Really? He tossed the wrench onto his toolbox with a clatter that made her flinch. Because from where I was standing, it looked like you were playing both sides, keeping your options open. The fancy Atlanta lawyer and the mechanic you could slum it with when you got bored. That's not fair. Fair? His laugh was bitter. You want to talk about fair? I told you about my ex-wife, Naomi. I told you what it felt like when she decided this life, my life, wasn't enough for her, that I wasn't enough. He grabbed a rag, wiping his hands with sharp, angry movements. And then you go and do the exact same thing. You didn't tell him about me. His voice rose, echoing off the concrete walls. You had weeks to mention you were seeing someone. But you didn't, did you? Because you weren't sure. You were keeping me in your back pocket while you figured out what you really wanted. Tears burned in Naomi's eyes. I broke up with him tonight, for good. Congratulations. The word dripped with sarcasm. You want a medal for finally making a decision? Marcus, I love you. He went very still for a moment, she thought maybe, but then he shook his head, his expression hardening further. No. He pointed the rag at her. You don't get to say that now. Not after everything. But I do. You love the idea of me, he cut her off. You love the fantasy of coming home, of small-town life, of something simple and uncomplicated. But that's not real, Naomi. Real is messy. Real is making hard choices and sticking with them. Real is not keeping someone a secret because you're not sure they fit into your real life. I know I hurt you. You don't know. His voice cracked, just slightly, and she saw the pain flash across his face before he locked it down again. You don't know what it's like to watch someone you care about look at your life like it's not enough, like you're not enough. I lived through that once. I'm not doing it again. I'm not her, Naomi whispered. Aren't you? He grabbed another tool, turned back to the engine. You're standing here telling me you love me, but 3 hours ago you couldn't even tell Devin I existed. What happens when you go back to Atlanta? When your fancy friends ask about your summer? You going to tell them about the mechanic, or are you going to conveniently forget to mention it? I'm not going back to Atlanta. He froze, then slowly turned around. What? I quit. I'm staying in Sweetwater. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or longing. But then it was gone, replaced by something harder. That's a mistake. The words knocked the air from her lungs. What? You're making a mistake. He set down the tool, faced her fully. You're running from something, not running to something. And when you figure that out, when the novelty wears off and you realize what you gave up, you're going to resent this place. You're going to resent me. That's not true. Go back to Atlanta, Naomi. His voice was quiet now, final. Go back to your life, your real life, not this summer fantasy. Marcus, please, I can't trust this. He met her eyes, and the pain there nearly broke her. I can't trust that you know what you want. And I can't go through this again. I won't. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. I should go, Naomi finally whispered. He didn't argue, just turned back to the engine, picked up his wrench. She made it to the bay door before his voice stopped her. For what it's worth, he said, not looking at her. I wanted to believe you. The past tense shattered something inside her chest. Naomi walked to her car on shaking legs. She didn't let herself cry until she was back on the main road, the garage disappearing in her rearview mirror. Marcus waited until her taillights vanished before he set down the wrench. His hands were shaking. He braced them against the Chevy's frame, dropped his head, and tried to breathe through the pain crushing his chest. He'd done the right thing. Protected himself. Kept his heart safe. So why did it feel like he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life? In her childhood bedroom, Naomi sat on the edge of her bed and stared at her phone. At the resignation email she'd sent hours ago. At the apartment lease she'd already given notice on. Marcus didn't believe her, and she'd earned that. She'd hurt him, kept him secret, made him feel like a backup plan. But she knew the truth now. Knew it bone deep. She loved him. She wanted this life, this town, this chance at something real, and she was going to prove it, not with words, but with action, not by telling him what she wanted, but by showing him even if it took time, even if it hurt. She'd made her choice. Now she just had to make him believe it. 3 months later, the afternoon sun streamed through the front window of Naomi's law office, casting golden rectangles across the hardwood floor. She stood back, hands on her hips, admiring the freshly painted sign that now hung above her desk. Naomi Brooks, attorney at law, family and community practice. It wasn't much, just 2 rooms in a renovated building on Main Street, sandwiched between the hardware store and Rosie's Diner. But it was hers. The walls still smelled faintly of paint, and half her law books remained in boxes stacked in the corner, but she'd already taken on 3 clients this week Mrs. Patterson needed help with her will. The Johnsons were buying their first home, and yesterday, she'd helped Miguel Rodriguez file the paperwork to finally become a U.S. citizen, watching tears stream down his face as he thanked her in broken English. This was nothing like corporate law in Atlanta. There were no billable hour quotas, no glass conference rooms, no suffocating pressure to make partner. Instead, there were handshakes and homemade pies left on her doorstep, thank you notes written in shaky cursive, and the deep satisfaction of knowing she was helping real people with real problems. Naomi moved to the window, gazing out at Sweetwater's main street. 3 months ago, she'd driven away from Marcus's garage with her heart in pieces, his words echoing in her mind. Prove you're running towards something, not away from something. So she had. She'd moved into a small apartment above the bookstore. She'd taken the Georgia bar exam. She'd attended town council meetings and joined the Sweetwater Business Association. She'd had Sunday dinners with her parents every single week, helped her sister paint the nursery for the baby, and slowly, steadily built a life here. A life that felt real. A life that felt right. The only piece missing was Marcus. She'd seen him around town, of course. Sweetwater was too small to avoid anyone completely brief glimpses across the farmer's market, a wave as he drove past in his truck, a polite nod at the hardware store. Each time, her heart had lurched painfully in her chest. Each time, she'd wanted to run to him, to tell him she'd done it, she'd proven herself. But she'd held back. If Marcus was going to believe her, he had to see it for himself. She couldn't force it. The bell above her office door chimed, pulling her from her thoughts. Sorry, I'm actually just closing up for the... She turned, and the words died in her throat. Marcus stood in the doorway, looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen before. He wore dark jeans and a button-down shirt, not his usual work clothes, and he held his baseball cap in his hands, turning it nervously. Hi, he said softly. Hi. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What are you doing here? He glanced around the office, taking in the desk, the filing cabinets, the framed law degree on the wall. Nice place. Really nice. Thank you. She couldn't read his expression. Marcus, I've been watching you, he said quickly, then winced. That sounds creepy. I just mean, I've seen you around town, setting up this office, having lunch with your parents, helping out at the community center fundraiser, living your life here. Naomi's throat tightened. That's what you asked me to do. Prove it was real. I know. He took a step closer, his dark eyes intense. And you did, Naomi. You really did. I've watched you build something here, put down roots, become part of this community, and He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I was so wrong to push you away. Marcus, please, let me say this. He moved closer still, close enough that she could see the vulnerability written across his face. I was scared. After my divorce, after everything with Jennifer, I couldn't trust that someone would actually choose this life. Choose Sweetwater. Choose me. So when you showed up at the garage that day saying you'd quit your job, I panicked. I thought you were making a rash decision you'd regret. I wasn't, Naomi whispered. I know that now. His voice cracked slightly. I've spent 3 months watching you prove it, and I've spent 3 months being absolutely miserable without you. I've missed you every single day, Naomi. Every morning I wake up and think about driving to your office just to see your face. Every night I lie awake wishing I'd been brave enough to believe you the first time. Tears pricked at Naomi's eyes. I missed you too, so much. Marcus reached out, gently taking her hand. His palm was warm and calloused, achingly familiar. You were right that day at the garage. You said you were running toward something. Toward home, toward family, toward love, toward me. And I should have trusted that I should have trusted you. You were protecting yourself, she said, squeezing his hand. I understand why. No. He shook his head firmly. You deserved better than that. You deserved someone who would catch you when you jumped, not someone who asked you to prove yourself first. He took a shaky breath. But if you'll give me another chance, I promise I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Naomi's heart stopped. The rest of your life? Marcus smiled, that slow, devastating smile she'd fallen in love with, and lowered himself to one knee. Oh my God, she breathed. Naomi Brooks. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. 3 months ago, you told me you loved me. You told me you were choosing Sweetwater, choosing this life, choosing me. And I was too scared to believe it. But I believe it now. I believe in you, in us, in the life we could build together. He opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant diamond ring. I love you. I think I've loved you since the day you walked into my garage with that ridiculous rental car. You're brilliant and brave and beautiful, and you make me want to be brave too. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Naomi's face as she looked at this man, this good, honest, wonderful man who'd been worth every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of heartbreak. Yes, she whispered, then louder, laughing through her tears. Yes, yes, of course I'll marry you. Marcus surged to his feet, sliding the ring onto her finger before pulling her into his arms. He kissed her deeply, thoroughly, pouring 3 months of longing and love into it. Naomi melted against him, finally home. The office door burst open and suddenly her parents rushed in, followed by her sister and what seemed like half of Sweetwater's population crowding onto the sidewalk outside. You said yes? Her mother cried, tears already flowing. You knew. Naomi looked at Marcus in amazement. He grinned sheepishly. I asked your father's permission last week, and I might have mentioned to a few people that I was planning this today. A few people? Naomi laughed as she spotted Mrs. Patterson, the Johnsons, Rosie from the diner, and even old Mr. Henderson from the hardware store, all beaming at them through the window. Her father pulled her into a tight hug. Welcome home, sweetheart. For good this time. For good, she agreed, looking over his shoulder at Marcus, who was being congratulated by what seemed like every person in town. Naomi's younger sister squeezed her hand, admiring the ring. I told you Sweetwater had everything you needed. You were right. Naomi watched as Marcus made his way back to her side, his hand finding hers naturally, perfectly. It has everything. As the celebration spilled out onto Main Street, with Rosie promising to bring over champagne and someone suggesting an impromptu party at the community center, Naomi stood in the doorway of her law office with Marcus's arm around her waist. The evening sun painted Sweetwater in shades of gold and amber, and she could hear the laughter of her family, the warmth of her community, the promise of her future. She'd left Atlanta searching for something she couldn't name. She'd found it here, not just in the small-town charm or the slower pace of life, but in the people who'd welcomed her home, in the work that fulfilled her, in the man who loved her. Marcus pressed a kiss to her temple. No regrets? Naomi looked up at him, at his warm eyes and gentle smile, and felt her heart overflow with certainty. Not a single one, she said. This is exactly where I'm meant to be. And as the celebration continued around them, as Sweetwater embraced its newest permanent resident, Naomi Brooks finally understood what it meant to come home, not to a place, but to a life, a love, and a future she'd chosen with her whole heart. Whoa, what a journey, right? I'd love to know. Where are you listening from? Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to see just how far this story reaches across the map. And tell me this. Do you think Naomi should have told Marcus the truth earlier? Would you have chosen Marcus or gone back to Atlanta? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'm reading them all. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. More love stories, more heart, more you. Until next time, keep love close and let your heart lead you home.